Welcome to the Upgrade Your Education Business podcast. I'm your host, Sumantha, and I'm so pleased you're here. As an education business owner myself and a former teacher, I understand the nuances that only apply to us. So in this podcast, I share fluff-free, tailored and actionable ideas that you can mould to suit your needs. If you'd like to take this conversation further, please do reach out. I would love to meet you. And finally, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a review. That way, you'll be helping me help more people. Thank you for tuning in. Enjoy. So, Nicola, why should someone who has just started listening to this episode, why should they pay attention to what you've got to say?
Mainly because most businesses need to sell in some way or another, and that can feel intimidating to some people. And I help give businesses ways to sell that feel comfortable to them, that have lots of integrity and honesty about them, but still are effective. So if they need to sell something, that's why they should listen.
And when we were just talking just before the episode, you mentioned that you like to show people strategies to sell with heart and integrity. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? Where did it come from?
It comes from always having an honest attitude to sales. I don't believe most of my sales has been in the education sector where relationships really matter. It wasn't a quick buck that we were aiming for. So if you want to establish a relationship, you need to have trust, like in any relationship. So being honest and selling or helping people with heart and integrity is absolutely vital, but it is still selling. So you still need strategies around that. So we borrow commercial strategies and just adapt them to the education sector so we can use all of our passion for what we do and how we help people in that activity.
So what do you mean by heart?
I mean, you can sell without feeling at all passionate about what you offer. You absolutely can, and there's definitely a place for that, but that's not where I'm from. So usually I work with people that love what they do. They just struggle maybe to do the selling part, whatever that looks like for them. Or they're maybe in admissions, but they haven't ever done any sales training and it's intimidating for them. But actually, it's bringing your passion and love for what you do and the kind of why, as Simon Sinek would say, the why of what you do, leveraging that to enable you to do the tasks to get the selling part done. It doesn't have to feel at all arduous. When I sell, it's lovely because I know I'm helping. I was just talking to a client of mine that's got another 32 students on board. And I'm just like, that's amazing. That's 32 students that now feel confident and supported and they're getting their dream education. That's an amazing thing. It's still sales and she still gets the money for that. But the end result, if you like, is just so rewarding.
Yeah, I'm very aligned with, this is how we kind of first bonded, wasn't it? We're both very aligned with how we view selling. And I think you're absolutely right in that it can be a conversation. It doesn't have to be something where you're being pushy, where you're almost trying to force someone to take something that maybe they don't need or isn't right for them. And something I think I talked about recently in a podcast episode was that unless you're really passionate about what you do, unless you truly believe it's really, really good, then other people are going to struggle to believe that because that confidence radiates, doesn't it?
It does. And I think so what I generally teach with my clients is if you have inquiries or you're outbound generating inquiries, if you find someone that you don't think you can help, you don't just have to dump them and move on. They can just go into a different workflow where they're nurtured, maybe just on an email list or something, because they also have a network, right? So, and they've also given you their time. So you can still value that. But in terms of sales, you do need to follow where the leads are likely to come from. So they would just go into a more a workflow that's just more active, actually. But you don't need to be, you still need an eyes on the prize, as it were, because we still need to make sales. And part of my job and why what we're called No Fluff is to strip away the stuff that's stopping you do that and just enable you to kind of crank the handle. If I do this and this and this in this way with the right people, I will make more sales or get more enrollments or whatever your terminology is around that. Yeah, you don't need to be pushy about it. You do need to be consistent in those efforts, and you do need to want to help those people. So that needs to be there, that passion for wanting to help these people. But there are some days, I think, with any business where you don't feel particularly passionate about what you do, especially if you run your own business. You can still have a lot of self-doubt, and that imposter syndrome's nagging on your shoulder. So in terms of having a system, that helps you get through those days as well. And even looking at what I call your ego folder can just remind you of why you do what you do, even on the days where you don't feel quite 100%, which is a lot in January, to be fair.
Yeah. Tell me about the ego folder.
The ego folder is, I mean, it sounds terrible, doesn't it, having an ego, but everyone has a down day. So in there, and I highly recommend everyone do because it's lots of fun. When you've got those emails or testimonials or recommendations, drag them into a file somewhere. And then when what way I use it is if I'm having a down day, I might go and look through and go, actually, yes, I am really awesome at what I do. Or I might reuse them for social proof, for example.
Yeah.
Or just to remind me of the bits that they really like. So if they mention a particular part of my training or coaching, then I think, oh, actually, I need to talk about that more because that's your customer voice after all. But the ego folder was originally designed to make me feel better. So when you're thinking, oh, I'm not converting anybody or the leads are a bit slow, you remember why you do what you do. It's just a reminder.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, I have to admit, every now and again, I'll go through my LinkedIn recommendations and similar kind of thing. And it really helps me. It just gives me that little boost, that little perk up. So it might make sense a little bit more because you've talked a little bit about education, businesses and stuff. It might make sense to the listeners a little bit more if you just explain a little bit about exactly what you do at No Fluff. So they've got that context behind what you're referring to.
Sure. Explain who I am. So No Fluff is a sales consultancy, mainly training and coaching for the education space. So we adapt commercial techniques to an education space. So we use all of those processes and tips and tricks and hacks and that kind of thing, and we tailor them to whoever is needing them. So that might be a school or an agency or a tutoring business, for example. And the idea is we do it in whatever time they have with whatever tools they have. So not everyone can afford a fancy CRM with all the bells and whistles. We start from wherever you are and improve. Don't mind where you are, but that's where we start and we move on.
So you love selling. I mean, your passion for selling really comes through. Why do you love it so much? Because, I mean, I'm with you. I've actually really grown to love selling because I found a style that I feel really great about and it works. So it's a win-win. But for most business owners, that's the part they hate. They feel uncomfortable. They feel like, oh, I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to have that conversation. Or they'll have a conversation, but feel a bit nervous when it comes time to talking pricing, for instance. So where did that love for selling come from?
Originally, it probably came from, so originally I was selling on the telephone for the Coventry Evening Telegraph, selling people delivery of the newspaper. This is way back when there was no internet, guys. So I was calling people in their homes at tea time, having to get them to take this delivery service. And some of the people I got through to there really valued the fact that this delivery service was offered. It was free, but obviously it meant they got the paper every day, so there was guaranteed spend. But they couldn't get out and they were quite isolated. So having someone deliver the paper every day was really nice. So I thought, I'm kind of doing them a favor in my arrogant 19, 20-year-old self. So it kind of stems from there, but it's not necessarily the sale itself. It's helping people achieve what they need to achieve. Anything that I sell, anything anyone sells really, is just a tool to get people to somewhere they want to be or a result that they want. So even tutoring or education generally, we're not selling that. We're selling how that helps them in the future. We are selling it technically. We need to sell bums on seats or whatever it might be, but it's just a tool. So my education was a long time ago and I value it, but it helped to get me to where I am now. And before I went to uni, for example, I knew that going to uni would help me get a better job, which would help me earn more money and get a house and do all the other stuff that I wanted to do and make me feel good. So selling isn't about us or actually what we offer. It's about helping those people get to where they want to be. And I'm much more comfortable, despite all appearances. I come across as very confident. I am, but I would much rather focus on the people that I help than on what I do, you know, like my packages and all that kind of stuff. I'm much more excited about other people reaching goals than I am about my own goals. If I can help my clients reach their targets and help all those students, that's me happy.
Yeah, so I suppose it's reframing your position as a salesperson to being a problem solver.
Yeah,
And I suppose that's where you started, wasn't it? So when you were selling things, what were you selling? It was the newspaper delivery, wasn't it?
yeah.
So you saw yourself as a problem solver. And I mean, I come from a call center, cold calling background as well. Not as, it wasn't as positive, should we say, as yours. I would say the worst job I had was I was selling double glazing.
Okay, you're one of
And,
them.
I was not solving anyone's problems here. And I did get told to get a real job. Um, I mean, it made me incredibly thick-skinned. But now doing something, I suppose I'm circling back to what you said actually with heart. Now that I'm doing something that I care about, where I care about my clients, because there are 100 ways to make money. I
Mm,
don't have to do it this way, but I choose to do it this way because this is what I love. And so I think when you see yourself as a problem solver, it reframes your role in a sales conversation. You're
mm,
actually having a conversation where you're helping someone solve a problem, and that problem might even be solved by saying, okay, it looks like we're not going to be the right fit, but let me recommend someone who is. That's still problem solving. And I think when you detach yourself from that outcome, where you're not putting pressure on yourself that I must get this sale, I must get this sale, that pressure kind of lifts and you can start enjoying it. Has that been similar to your experience? What would you add to that for someone who just needs to get a bit more comfortable with selling?
I think clarity on who you want to, like your ideal client avatar, your ideal buyer persona, getting really clear on that. So right at the beginning, I made a list of the people, that type of people I wanted to help and type of businesses I wanted to help, and also a type that I didn't want to help. So having an exclusion list sounds really weird, but excluding people or knowing exactly who I didn't want to help or who I wasn't suitable for is absolutely has been pivotal for me, especially over the past few years. So I think I've strayed off the question, but
That's okay.
framing it as being problem solving is great. But I'm also mindful that as we are usually empaths in our sector, that we then want to solve all the problems and we continue to solve the problems even if they don't become a paying client. So part of my no fluff role, and it goes back to the name, is you don't have to solve everyone's problems. You can signpost to other people, as you said, but just be mindful you don't want to keep. So quite a few of my clients will have hour-long consultancy calls they charge nothing for, and then nothing comes of it. They're not suitable. So I would immediately try and get that down. We'll have a process to get that down to 10-15 minutes with an agenda, and so everyone knows what page we're on, and if people want to then work with us, they can then work with us, but then there is a cost from there. So valuing yourself and your time has got to be a part of that. And if you are empathetic, I think you do tend to then want to solve everyone's problems. You immediately want to come up with all the solutions for them and do all the intros and take it on, but you don't have to.
I think it's a hazard of the job, isn't it, really? When you work in education, wanting to help people is what you do. And just made a note, but I can't read my own handwriting. What did I say? Oh yeah. So you were saying about you get on that 15-minute or 20-minute call. And actually, so at the moment, when are we recording this? Beginning of January. At the end of this month, I'll be finishing my qualification to be a sales strategist with the Institute of Sales. And one of the things that I've actually really learned from the training is that having a sales conversation is actually a bit of an art form.
Mm,
It's not as simple as just having a chat. And I think that this is really their strength. Educators are amazing communicators. It's what we do, it's what we live and breathe. Our success absolutely relies on excellent communication skills. And so I think that a lot of the time we walk into a sales conversation thinking, well, I'm a really good communicator, so I'm not going to have a problem with this. But then why aren't they buying from me? Oh, no, they've said that the price is the problem. And actually, when you just when you just add a tiny bit of structure, it doesn't have to be scripted. When you add that little bit of structure, it completely transforms that conversation. You're still
Mhm.
having a genuine conversation, you're still helping people, but each part of that conversation, so to speak, serves a really important function. And if you were to share, I mean, I do a lot of this training in the mastermind, in the tutors mastermind, where it's tailored for tutors, but it's not just tutors who are listening to this. What would you say could be the one biggest takeaway to having a really strong sales conversation where actually 15, 20 minutes is enough?
I think before they get, it all starts from the initial inquiry. So before they get on that conversation, you need to pre-qualify who you're speaking to using the sales terms. So are they likely to be your right ideal client avatar for a start? I would lay the expectation. I'm going to do more than one, aren't I? I can feel myself doing it. So lay the expectation. So we've got 15 minutes. I'm really looking forward to it. Here are some questions that are commonly asked. Come with your own. I'm going to talk a bit about what I do, ask you about what you do, and then we'll see if we've got a fit to work together. So they know I'm going to be making an offer at the end if it's a fit. So I would set that up straight away. And that can look different. The wording around that will look different for everybody, and it's finding what you're comfortable with there. But I think laying the expectation for the sales call is really important there.
Do you know what you've said there is golden? Because I think that we often use softer language like, let's jump on a coffee and a chat.
Yeah, no.
Let's do this, let's do that. And actually, over the years, something I've had to make really clear is I'm going to sell you something. I am going to make you an offer
Mm,
if it's right for you. And the minute I changed the questions to reflect that in my Calendly form before someone books a call, there was a transformation in my sales.
mm,
Before I had that, before I actually got someone's agreement that they are committed and ready to invest in their business, before that, I had people who used the call to get free advice.
yeah,
And you know what? I don't blame them because I didn't communicate enough, strongly enough, what the purpose of that call was. And it hasn't reduced my sales calls. You know, I think we often feel afraid of saying, I'm going to sell you something because we think people don't like to be sold to.
mm,
But I actually often call out that cliche because if people didn't like to be sold to, no one would ever buy anything. So that's not necessarily the issue. What you were about to say something. What's your opinion on that?
I think people like to buy, but they don't like to be sold to. So I think a more comfortable phrase, because I imagine people will listen to this going, "Oh, I don't want to say I'm going to sell you something at the end," which isn't what you meant at all.
No.
You different language. But saying, if it makes them feel more comfortable, saying things like, "If we have a fit, then I will offer you the chance or the opportunity to work with me," or finding language, find your phrase and keep saying it so that you're used to saying it out loud before you get on the call. But yeah, no more coffee and chats are great if you only want to have a coffee and a chat. If you want it to be a sales call, then no more coffee and chats. We're going to have a call and we're going to talk about this. I'm going to ask you about this, and then I'm going to see if we have a fit. I'm going to see if there are ways that we can work together. If you want to go ahead with that, and then
Yeah. I think the way you start that conversation is a great way, isn't it? I mean, you
mm,
can you can use whatever language you want to get people on a call, but at that point they need to be really clear what it's about.
yeah,
And starting it by saying this is what's going to happen means that you don't have to be uncomfortable when you're then making an offer because you already pre-warned them. They already knew it's coming, they're expecting it. And
yeah,
actually, I find that when I lay out that expectation, before I've even had the chance to make my offer, so to speak, people have asked me to make the offer because they know it's coming. They know that's the purpose of the call. And I think what's good is that it also filters out people. So you might see a reduction in the calls that you're getting, but that's not a bad thing because
no.
the people who aren't booking that call are the people who actually aren't serious about discussing how you can help them.
Mm. And some people won't be ready for a call either. It depends where your call link is and how you're
Yeah.
putting it out there. Some people, that's just too much already, especially if they're not, native speakers, for example. That can just feel a bit too much. So I use lots of WhatsApp, for example, with my overseas clients, and having a chat over WhatsApp because it's text-based just feels better to them. I will usually send a video as well because it's good to get that kind of personality across. And the other big tip I don't want to leave without saying, so before I forget, is in that sales call, already know that if they are a fit, what that next step will be, and arrange it in the call. So in my book, there's even a link to print off a little poster for your PC to go, set the next step, because so many people forget to do it. They'll have the sales call or the consultancy call, and then they'll follow up with an email, and then they'll go, oh, they didn't reply, or then it's a bit awkward to then get in touch with them again. Whereas if you say, okay, let's, if we can go ahead now, fantastic. Or if they need time to think about it, say, great, why don't we have another chat, or why don't I call you back next Thursday,
Yeah.
the afternoon suit, and get that next step organized. Setting that next step at all points is really, really important. So even when they're onboarded, whatever that looks like for you, set the expectation for what happens next, which might be a tutoring session, but also at the end of your block of sessions, I'm going to ask you for some feedback, and we're going to do that with a form or a video, and we would love to use that, just so they know it's coming. We don't want any surprises. People need to feel empowered in their buying decisions. So the more that we help them see what's going to happen, the less surprised they're going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I something that I do at the end of a call, if I know that someone isn't buying there and then, is I'll say that, is it all right if I drop you an email? And they're like, yeah, of course. And then I commit to a day. I ask them for which day is actually the best day. And
Yeah.
actually, when you're doing a follow-up process, that immediately increases the chances of them replying, paying attention, because they're expecting that to come. You mentioned about you sometimes send a video. It reminded me of someone who's on that sales course who she said, oh, I experimented the other day with recording videos on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, you can do a little video message now to people.
Yeah.
And she felt really uncomfortable about it because she actually sells to schools, but she did it. And every single person got back to her, and she got a meeting out of every single person.
Mm.
Now, I'm not saying that because I think, okay, now you need to be videoing everyone on LinkedIn or whatever. But I think what it is that we were talking about how to make sales enjoyable and to find your own style. So you're doing
Yeah.
it with heart. And part of that process is experimenting. Because actually, you might feel uncomfortable sending a video message to someone, but if you see it works, you're not going to feel uncomfortable anymore, because that
Well,
will give you the confidence, won't it?
suddenly, if you're getting a load of clients from it, it's worth a bit of discomfort, right? But no, so video messaging has been used for quite a while in the sales world, predominantly in the US. They do video messages all the time. So I don't send video messages on LinkedIn. I will send voice notes. Generally, I'll try and get them onto my WhatsApp. I'll try and get everyone into my own network, if you like, so my own WhatsApp or my own email, rather than just relying on LinkedIn. But I use two platforms. One's called Loom.
Yeah,
Loom,
I have. Yeah, I
called
used that.
Bonjoro, which is Bonjoro, and
Yeah.
they embed little thumbnails, and it's getting them to open them is actually the trick. So if you send video messages, she's obviously got a great hit rate, which is awesome. But sometimes you don't, especially if you're sending a lot of them. But for example, what you can do is have a standard video, if you like, explaining a bit about what you do or whatever that script is. And then you can just tag on that first bit, which is personalized, which saves a bit of time. And what we've found works really well. I'm looking around for a bit of empty bit of paper, but I haven't got any. But if you hold a piece of paper with their name on it, or like a whiteboard, so you could say, I could say Sumantha, and it could say that. So the thumbnail clearly has your name on it. It's going to increase your open rates. You've got to get them into the email first. So all of these little tricks help just increase your open rates and your conversions. But that works quite well. And it's done quite a lot in the US and in Canada. They do that a lot. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to treat everything like an experiment, don't you? You have to tailor it to what you learn about your audience. Something that I've learned about the tutoring world and the parents that we're often speaking to is that when you add extra things for them to do or extra steps, they actually don't do them. And so actually they pay more attention after a call as opposed to before a call. Whereas sometimes if you're speaking to business owners or if you're teaching adults, for example, they're a bit more likely to pay attention to the stuff before a call because they're a bit more vested, they're a bit more, they are the person you're actually directly working with. in a tuition dynamic, you're often speaking to the decision maker who's not the person you're actually going to work with.
Yeah.
So it's a slightly different relationship. And so I mention that because I think that it's always really important, firstly, to tailor what you're doing to your niche, but also to experiment, because something that might work for me may not work for you, and vice versa. And we may not be able to figure out why, but when you try all of these different things out, you get data, you get that information that tells you, that steers you what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing.
And I think don't be afraid to try it again as well. So I think your audience grows with you. And depending on your size of your audience, and by that I mean your email audience mainly, it might be that they need warming up for a good year before they contact you, or whatever it might be. So that sales cycle, if you like, can be quite long. And yeah, experiment, but you can always re-experiment. So I used to run 5-day challenges, for example. And actually they're exhausting, so I probably won't do another one, but it might be time for me to do another one. I used to do webinars every month. Now I do one every quarter. And so and checking the workflow before that. With the customers that I have that work with both the parents and the children as the end user, we actually have 2 different follow-up flows. So follow-up is my main nag, to be fair. That's what the whole book's about and everything. So we would have 2 different follow-up flows. So one would be for the children, which is all about kind of how much fun they're going to have and confidence and different style of writing, different style of follow-up flow. And then we'll have the parents, which is a lot more about what the parents' ideal client avatar will like. So we actually have 2 different flows going at the same time, because the child might not make the decision, but they are an influencer. So you need to nurture all areas. And if there's a grandparent involved, you might have a different flow for them as well. So it's having that different approach depending on who that avatar is.
Yeah. And I just want to also ask you, what is it about education that was so magnetic for you? Because I know you don't come from an education background professionally as such, but you now work very much with, it's normally independent schools and agents. Is that right?
Yes. So half of my work is with education agents globally, and the other half is with schools, which is mainly independent schools at the moment because of all the changes, but also language colleges, for example. But I started off mainly, so I did a degree in languages and then studied abroad. So that international education part was always with me. I got so much out of it. I'm still in touch, 3 decades later, with the people I met out there and the families that I met. It's such an enriching experience, the study abroad part, which is why I then worked for study travel. That really appealed to me. So that's where I started. And then working in schools and alongside agencies, what they do just has such a ripple effect, right? It's just the international side is where I was from. So, I'm going to go to world peace here. I think the more we understand each other's cultures and languages and all of those social nuances by studying abroad, the better the world will be, right? Because we fear what we don't know. So I'm a big advocate of the international education sector and studying abroad and that student mobility piece. And then generally education, obviously I've been through various education institutions, as have my children, and they've studied abroad and obviously studied here too. And in fact, my daughter was homeschooled, so she's experienced the tutoring side as well. It's so enriching and so tailored, really, especially the private education side, so tailored to get the best for each student. I don't see how that can fail to be a good thing for the world in general, let alone the individual student and their families. So, a student that does well in their exams is all very good, and that's brilliant. But their families are really proud, and they get to brag to the neighbours, and they get to feel like they've done their job as a parent, and they get to feel accomplished for their children. There's so many positives to it. I don't see how you could not be enthusiastic about that. And I'm not a teacher, and I'm a coach, I guess, but I'm not I'm not a school dropout, as it were, teacher dropout. Is that what you call yourself?
Yeah,
dropout.
that's on my LinkedIn headline. Yeah.
So I'm not. So my honor is to help other people get their good stuff out there. That's my way of contributing. So if I can get that client I mentioned earlier that's got another 32 students, my small part helped her do that, that's how I get my satisfaction. So I'm pleased that her business is thriving. That's great. But also she helps these students get into the schools. It helps the schools thrive as well. So it's all positive. I think that's good. If you can leave a good impact on the world, that's mainly what we want, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I'm going to finish off on a question that I think will really help people who are new business owners, but also established business owners who actually don't love the marketing side of things necessarily. I want to ask you a question.
Mm.
Do you think sales can happen without marketing or before marketing?
Yes. I'm going to get into trouble for saying that, though.
I agree with you, so I'll get in trouble too.
So in an ideal world, you have both, but sales can be outreach, for example, so prospecting. So sales is, I mean, it depends how you define it. Marketing I see as kind of broadcasting one to many, and sales is a much more one-to-one, bringing them into you kind of conversation. So that's how I define it. But there's gray areas, right? And both are important. But for me, if you were starting from scratch with nothing, outbound selling, getting in touch with people, prospecting absolutely isn't the same as marketing in the general one-to-many sense. Marketing might argue that that is still marketing because you need to know who to reach out to and what message it is. So there is a grey area, but I believe you can sell absolutely, and you can absolutely sell without spending more money. You just need to learn how to convert those inquiries in a more efficient way and follow up in a more robust way for the ones that you think are likely to be a fit for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do agree with you because I think that marketing is a long game. So you might be a new business owner, you've just started marketing. So if your sales depend on marketing, well, then you're going to have to wait a very long time to get your first client. Whereas the reality is you can get that marketing momentum started, start getting your name out there, start getting front of mind, starting conversations. But you can also use your network. And let's say you've taken a very traditional journey of you've been in the classroom and then you've left the classroom, you've set up a tuition business, an education business, then actually chances are you have contacts who are in the education space as well. And I think that sometimes we underestimate how powerful our network is. And that's why I wanted to ask you, because I know that you come from sales from a different angle to me. You work with a different group of people. And as much as I believe that everything has to be really tailored, I also think there are some universal principles. So that's why I was really interested to know what your opinion on that was.
On a general sales approach, do you mean?
I mean, on selling without marketing, or can you sell without marketing?
Yes, and a big network comes into it, but you can also make a network if you feel your network isn't robust enough. I think the first thing you would need to do is build your audience or borrow someone else's audience. So, leaning on your network to get that audience, contacting agents if you teach overseas students, looking at your school contacts and your peers. You need to ask the question. You just need to perhaps be a bit more courageous in it, and it will be harder work because you've got to be consistent. I would definitely recommend setting aside time every day for anyone that runs their own business to do your selling, and just think, what can I do to move the needle today? Who can I call? Who can I ask? Who can I follow up? And be your own sales manager if you don't have a coach or something. So half an hour, who can I call today? Or who can I reach out to? What do they need to hear? What do they want? What problem am I solving? And start building up that habit. That will hold you in very good stead. But yes, and then follow up. I would definitely get organized. So in terms of other tips, get organized. You probably have spreadsheets everywhere, but you can get a CRM for nothing. So HubSpot do a free sales CRM.
I use them, yeah.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier. Costs you nothing, gets you organized and reminds you, gives you tasks to do. So you can keep on top of it, and you get to see your pipeline and see what's coming in and what hasn't and why. And just getting yourself organized, and that will put people off straight away because they don't want to set up a CRM, but it's dead easy. So get organized, get everyone in one place, and just think, if my life depended on it, if I needed to pay my bills by what I'm doing today in that half an hour, what would I do? And then go and do that.
I think the important phrase you use there is, what can I do to move the needle?
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what you're trying to do when you're doing some kind of sales activity. And if you can't manage half an hour, do 5 minutes.
Mhm.
If you do something every day that, just like you said, moves the needle, pushes you forward just that little 1%, it's really valuable, because it means that things are always moving. They're not stagnant, or you don't have a period of intensity and then a period of nothing. We want that flow to continue, so that actually selling becomes part of your routine. And it's something that's a really valuable business activity, because you could spend hours on Canva, because it's quite fun to create really nice images for your marketing. And I'm not denying the importance of having the decent aesthetics there. But ultimately, that's still a step behind and making an actual sale. And
Yeah.
making an actual sale is what underpins everything that we're doing when we're working on our business. So I
Mhm.
think that's really sage advice of, do something every day, anything that will move
Mhm.
the needle. It could even be spending one day or over across 2 days, just getting yourself organized. I have a follow-up tracker, which I use HubSpot. They're all free. Didn't take me ages to set up. If you're in the mastermind, you'll know how to do that, because I've given you the template. If you're not in the mastermind, you can set it up yourself. It's not really complicated. But when you just have everything in one place, it's like tidying your house. You suddenly feel like, right, I feel ready to do this, because it's not hard.
Mm.
Everything's already set up for my success in doing this.
Yeah, I think you need to examine why you're not doing it, and then get comfortable with the bit. So being very honest with yourself. So you might have the most tidy, organized CRM in the world, but if you're still not taking that action, there's some mindset block there. Either usually it's because you're worried about bothering them, and
Yeah.
there's that, and or you're not entirely sure about your offer, not confident in your offer, or you're super allergic to the phone, which is not many percent, only a few percent. So examine that and challenge it, and be honest with yourself, because no one's coming on a white horse to rescue your business. You need to go out there and be a little bit courageous, as I said. But if you were advising someone else, what would you say to them? Maybe that's the way to come at it. What advice would you give someone else that needed to make some sales? What can you do today? Like, you've got to pay the bills. What are you doing today to do that? There is can't remember the name of a book I read that said 5 before 5, make 5 phone calls before 5 p.m. every single day. And not to the same people. That didn't come with it, but I'm sure that's what would have been added. So not to the same people. Make 5 phone calls. So that could be to your schools that you work with, or alumni, or people in your pipeline. 5 every day is a really good standard. 5 before 5.
Yeah.
You've done a good
Well, I
job.
think that's a really great way to wrap up this episode, where you've really shared a nice actionable thing that someone can follow. Because I think that when you share a lot of different tips, sometimes people don't really know where to start, but that's a really good place to start. Even if you can't do 5 before 5, do 3 before 3, or whatever it
Yeah.
might be. Pick a number that suits how many people you've got in your world, in your audience, if you need to warm up, wherever you are in that journey. And as with everything, that mindset piece is really important, isn't it? And we have to challenge ourselves. We are entrepreneurs, and we can't afford to have a sales department, a HR department, a marketing department. We wear those hats often. So we have to challenge our mindsets.
Mm. I think you can let's work it out. So for an outsourced salesperson, it's probably going to be about £500-600 a day. So let's say that's 7 hours. So divide that up, and even pay yourself that money to do the sales. So you could try that. So to think, okay, every hour I spend, I'm going to earn this amount, but you have to make enough sales to cover it. What are you going to do? Try that.
That's a good tip as well. I think, it's just finding something that gels with you and how you
Yeah,
think and what motivates you, isn't it?
yeah, definitely. But take the focus off of yourself and put it on the people that you're going to help.
Yeah.
You're not going to help everyone. We're not going to give them loads of free time, but stop worrying about yourself. It's not about you at the end of the day. It's about the people that are buying. So take the focus off how worried you are about making that phone call, or how awkward you feel about following up. It's not
Yeah.
about you, it's about them.
I love that. Thank you so much, Nicola. Really appreciate your time. Really enjoyed our chat. And I hope you'll be back on the podcast again sometime and we can talk sales again.
Lovely. Always love talking sales. Get to geek out. Thank you for having me.
Would you like to take this discussion further? Perhaps you have some questions or you'd like more ideas on tailoring your business. If so, book a free discovery call through the link in the show notes.